Greetings, brothers and sisters. YouTube recommended this video to me a couple days ago, or yesterday. Kanye needs to be completely ostracized, says California lawmaker. This is the Morning Joe.
Adidas stock is down 20% in the last month after the sportswear company was one of the few not to cut ties with Kanye West following a series of anti-Semitic remarks, among other things. This morning,
their stock was punished, right?
Company finally decided enough was enough.
He's really Gumbying it out today. He's got the big-time Gumby do.
NBC's Stephanie Gosk has the latest.
Breaking news this morning. Adidas confirming it is ending its lucrative partnership with Kanye West, now known as Ye. The company saying in a statement, Ye's recent comments and actions have been unacceptable, hateful, and dangerous, and they violate the company's values of diversity and inclusion, mutual respect, and fairness.
How have they been dangerous, right? So I don't agree with what Kanye has said or what he's doing here, because it always ends like this, right? Whenever you go after a group of people based in race, religion, any sort of demographic. Okay, so I was doing this Kanye West video. I started it with my ScreenFlow app and commenting on this MSNBC video. And it's early in the morning, so I make a lot more mistakes in terms of, verbal, whatever it is, right? When I'm just waking up. And also, oftentimes I'm coughing, there's a little hoarseness in my throat, things like this. And so I have to really heavily edit, and it takes a lot longer to do that than do a voiceover where I can edit it in real time, where I just edit what I'm saying here and then continue on, and it's just easier for me to do it in voiceover. So there's a long section here that I want to redo and clarify my position on this thing with Kanye. So the first thing is that I never felt comfortable talking about demographics of people, like in terms of a group of people, and saying like all the Jews are this way, all the gays are this way, all the white people are this way, all the Anglos, all the English people, all the whatever it is, right? All the Native Americans, any demographics. Some are more protected than others, but I never felt comfortable talking about a group of people based in their race or religion or their whatever it is, even as a kid. Because historically, I didn't know this as a kid, but historically, this always goes in an unpleasant way, right? When you start creating an us against them type of situation based in demographics, it always ends badly. It just breeds hate and resentment, and, could be based in any number of things. And it's a human tendency, prejudice, to prejudge based in somebody's whatever they are, right? And when you do that, it always ends up being division, and it leads to some sort of war at some point. But I also recognize that to some degree there is some truth in stereotypes, right? That based in the culture you grew up in and the genetics that you have, and any number of things, you're going to have certain tendencies, right? You're going to have, as a group, you're going to have some things. As a nationality, as a culture, you're going to be trained a certain way, and then there's the whatever genetics that go along with it. So there's going to be some behaviors and attitudes and the ways that you express yourself, and all these things that are specific to your demographic, your national demographic. And so, that's true. There is some of those things. And it's easy to stereotype people based in those things. And there's going to be some truth to those stereotypes. Like, I don't have a group. I don't have a group that I belong to in terms of what I identify as, right? On paper, I'm Caucasian, but I'm not, a typical white person, right? And there's different types of white people. There's English white people. There's, people who are different ethnicities. There's Irish white people, right? There's German white people. I mean, all are different. They're different types of white people. And there are people like me, Italian or Spanish white people who have, technically have what's considered Caucasian skin, but Caucasia is a place, in the mountains, the Caucasus Mountains, right? And that's not, I mean, it's not like, doesn't represent all white people, right? White people are different cultures, different shades, just like black people are different, cultures, different shades. And so, there's not like a clear representation. And for me, growing up as American, like, I guess I identify as American, I always felt like I didn't fit in America in terms of the goals and the culture and the all of it, right? But there's things about me that are very American. And when I go to gatherings, when I've gone to gatherings in the past, and when I've gone to India to do my Sahaj Marg, meditation, and there's people from all around the world, I have been categorized as an American, right? Like they look at me as very American, right? With American attitude, and they have prejudice against Americans or whatever it is. I mean, some people are nicer, some people are, more positive, some people are more whatever it is. But, certainly as an American, I have that, like to some extent. Like I don't think about myself that way, but, it's there. And I have Sicilian, Irish, German, and Albanian ancestors. And so there are some things that I have based in that people see mannerisms. When I look at any of those groups of people, I don't see myself. Like when I see Italian people, I don't see myself Sicilian, which is, it's got its own stereotypes, right? The mob. I mean, my grandfather was a barber. My dad was a guidance counselor, right? There's no mob, there's no mafia in my genetic line as far as I know. My dad's family lives in New Jersey, and he and I went to a funeral, just him and me, years and years ago. I was probably about 7 or 8. And there was all these very Sicilian people that were there at the funeral, one of my dad's relatives, right? One of my relatives. And, I looked at the people and I didn't feel like, they represented who I was as a person. Like I didn't feel, anything else about it. I mean, they were just different. They were very much more Italian than I was, right? Ethnic or whatever it is. So for me, I just don't have demographics. There are times I feel very much one with the people I'm around, regardless of the demographics, right? There's times when I played basketball, I was the only white guy there. And I didn't even feel different. I didn't feel, like I was different than the people I was playing basketball with, just very much in the flow. Other times, I feel completely self-conscious and not like the people I'm around. Could be based in age. It could be based in any number of reasons, or just our belief system, especially now as truthers, because truthers are very different from each other. And there's sort of a loneliness to being a truther because of all the way that, truthers don't get along with each other and certainly don't get along with sheeple. So there's that, right? And even in like a fringe organization like the Sahaj Marg organization, that's, is very small amount of people that do it in America. I'm a fringe person and an outsider. But what I do know is that in every religion, in every group, in every demographic, I can find people who are very much like me internally on a soul level. And that's the issue here, because your spiritual development, who you are as a soul and where you come from on a soul level, because, soul energy can come from various places in the so-called universe or whatever it is, from regions in the etheric universe. And when you're around people who are like a part of your soul family, even people you don't get along with, some people are just more significant in your life and they're part of your soul family. And sometimes people aren't. More times than not, people aren't a part of your soul family. And so there's that. That's something I would more focus on than external, superficial characteristics, right? And that's always been something that's more significant to me. What kind of person is, what kind of, soul quality a person has, a spiritual quality, and how you can connect or not connect with people based in that, what's inside of you, right? And so with this thing with Kanye, or Ye, he's his name is now Ye. This thing with Ye is that he has said outrageous things before. It's something he does. And what he says now, there's going to be a senator or a congressman from California that says he should be ostracized from society. And is that fair, right? Is that a legitimate consequence for what Kanye is saying here as we go through this video? I just want to preface this beforehand because this is why I'm covering this. Ye said some things that have offended people, Jewish people, and other people who are aligned with or are against him targeting a group, right? Like I've said before, and I'm saying here, I feel uncomfortable with that because it's just, it just takes you in the wrong direction. I don't agree with what Ye is doing here because, again, like Kanye, I've said, he always makes the show better because he says outrageous things. He does things against the social norms. And the reason why I don't agree with it is what's the goal here? Because people in the truth community, a lot of them, a lot of you have a negative opinion and attitude towards Jewish people, right? Or any number of other demographics. And then across society, people have their own personal prejudice and things like this. And some of you choose to speak out in public about it, either in video form or in comments or whatever it might be. But what's the goal? Because it works against, you got to understand what your goal is when you do that. If you don't like a certain group or you think a certain group has power and they're misusing their power, and you want to use your words to express something about it, you got to think about choosing your words in such a way and what your goal is in your action, in your words, in whatever you're going to say, and how is that going to play out? Like, how is it going to play out on a strategic level, on a goal-based level? Because, as I've said before, we now know this whole idea of waking people up doesn't work. People are set in their beliefs. You're not going to change other people's beliefs. You're just going to get into baits, or you're going to get into some, power struggle. You're going to get into any number of situations. You might be deplatformed in certain circumstances, right? In a system that's collapsing on its own levels of depravity. The people that run the system can't stop it from collapsing, and neither can all of us, the rest of us, right? There's no stopping this system from collapsing. Every system collapses, and this system's collapse is close, right? It's, we're in the collapsing process. I've said this a number of times. And my goal here when I make videos isn't to seek justice. I'm not trying to punish people. I'm not trying to, consequence people. I'm not there's no sense of any of those things. When I talk about people and their issues or whatever's going on in the Hollywood structure and the political structure and the economic structure, the people I call the controllers, it's not my job to pass some sort of judgment, right? I can judge them personally, but I'm not in charge of what's going to happen to them, consequences that's going to happen to them or all the rest of us, right? The consequences are already there. There's a divine system, a system that's well thought out and well planned, not even thought out, perfect. It's not even thought out because it's just naturally perfect. And consequences are there for any wrong action a person takes, any action against the work they're supposed to do, against what their soul is supposed to do. And it's not really within my consciousness to understand what your soul wants you to do, what your soul wants you to do in terms of the role that you're supposed to play. Anybody else. I can't figure that out for you, or it's not my job to understand that, right? Or even see it. But I can do that for me. We all can do that for ourselves. We can figure out what our soul wants us to do, what we're supposed to do. I mean, not our egos, because people conflate the two things. But we can figure out for ourselves what our souls want us to do. And so when I cover all these people, when I'm making fun of them, joking, mocking them, whatever it might be, what I'm doing is contrasting somebody who is an ego-based person, who is desiring material power, ego-based power, celebrity, money, all these things, and how they're miserable and they're, going in the wrong direction. At least, in terms of what we can see. Maybe their soul is congruent with what they're doing, but still it's a lower level behavior, right? They haven't reached the state yet where they're connecting with their soul, connecting to the divinity that's in them, and working in some sort of symbiosis with their soul to achieve the goals that their soul set out for them. And not that, I'm doing that great, like it's not like I'm some expert on that, like, or I'm killing it, like I'm doing it great, but I am doing it to some extent, right? I've been working on that since I started doing the Sahaj Marg system. And it is, you go to another level when you do that, a level that I can easily perceive. The people who aren't doing that, right, in terms of, they're struggling with their material lives and their egotistical pursuits, which everybody does, and they have no consciousness of their soul, right? They might be doing what their soul wants them to do, but it's a lower level. They haven't reached a state of consciously working with the spiritual part of themselves with an attitude of service to God, right? If you talk to them about it, they wouldn't even know what you're talking about. Maybe, they're doing what their soul needs them to do now so they can do that later. But they're still in a lower level of, they're in kindergarten, where those of us who are actually making an effort, not all the time, not great or whatever it is, but we're still making an effort to figure out what God wants us to do and do that, right? So that's what my position here is on my videos, right? When I'm contrasting all these ego-based people who are, who have seized power in some way, but they're miserable and they're failing and they're disconnected from God and they're lonely and they don't feel love in their hearts and things like this. You can see it, right? You can see the effects of an ego run amok. So as we go forward here, this thing with Ye. So Ye believes, and he's not alone, because there's going to be this stuff with Kyrie Irving. There is people in the African American community, black community, who believe that, especially these entertainers and athletes, that believe that the people that they're dealing with, many of them who are Jewish, in Ye's case, record executives and people who, he's saying runs Hollywood. Because there's this idea that Jewish people run the financial system and run Hollywood and run the music industry. And is that true? Well, you can look at and run the media, right? And you can look at that based in, you see the positions of power. I mean, anybody can go do this research for themselves, see the people who are in power, and see what demographics they have, right? What's their demographic makeup. And so what Ye is saying is that these people who are in power, who are mostly Jewish people, don't have the black community's best interests at heart. That's what his point of view and position is. And is that true? Is that true or not? Because if there's some truth in that, then Ye should not be ostracized, right? Then there needs to be some open dialogue and debate. Now, I don't, think he's going about this in a proper way, the way that he's, he often just has this stream of consciousness, right? But some of the things he's saying is being mischaracterized. The Jewish community's point of view here is that they have been demonized in the past by Christians and other people around the world, and that there's a history of them being killed and abused, of course, the stuff to do with Hitler and Germany and things like this, but in other countries, of them being blamed, of them being scapegoated and persecuted, and that Ye's words could lead to that situation again. And therefore, he needs to be silenced. He needs to be condemned because it could lead to violence against Jews, right? And this is what this report is focusing on, right? But it's a very one-sided situation because if the people in the black community believe that they're being exploited by a demographic, another demographic, well, that becomes more complex because is there any truth in that, right? And I'm not going to say whether there is or not, or what my opinion is or not, right? Like, because I I don't know. Like I'm not a part of it. But what I am commenting on here is two things. One that what I'll get into is that they've characterized Ye as mentally ill. And they've characterized all of us, people in the truth community, people who don't agree with the official story, because we're being treated in a similar way. Maybe not because we're going after a demographic or we're being called anti-Semitic or whatever it is, or homophobic or racist or any of these things, right? Those are things that are said about people in the truth community. But mostly what's said about us is that we don't agree with the official story and that we're crazy conspiracy theorists. And it's okay to demonize us, right? And I'm not playing a victim. I'm not playing the victim card. I don't do that. But we're a group that everybody can categorize in a negative way across the board in the media. And there's no consequences. And we can be deplatformed and shut down and all these things, right? For disagreeing with the official story. And we can all be lumped together with crazy right-wing people or QBs or, whatever it is, right? We can be labeled as this and that and the other thing, stereotypes that aren't true, things that aren't, across the demographic universal between all of us. And so these are things I want to talk about here, that there is a power dynamic where if there's any truth to what Ye's saying, they are not allowing that truth to be told, right? And I'm not saying, whatever. He's doing it the best way, or it's 100% true what he's saying. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm not commenting on the debate here. I'm saying how it's being dealt, because Ye's the only person being punished, right? Ye is the only person who's being told to be silenced, right? We're being silenced here in the truth community. He's being silenced, and what he's saying is being mischaracterized. So let's get into it here.
Inclusion, mutual respect, and fairness. The rap star made a series of anti-Semitic comments. The brand has been under fire for its association with West. West doubling down on his anti-Semitic messages overnight.
It's genocide and population control that black people are in today in America that is promoted by the music and the media that black people make, that Jewish record labels get paid off.
Okay, so what Kanye West is saying, what Ye is saying here, is that, for example, the gangster rap music or any number of tendencies that are promoted in rap music or the music industry in general, in terms of the way black people are portrayed, the products and the things that black people are supposed to engage in, gangster stuff, right? Violence and criminal behavior, any number of stereotypical type of, negative behaviors that are promoted, like take gangster rap, for example, right? Now, and again, I'm not commenting on Kanye's opinion here, what he's saying, and I'm not a part of it. And again, I believe the society's crumbling anyway. The thing that I also should have included is that my position is that this is a defunct system based in a debt-based economic model, a usury system, which I've said over and over again. And it is against the natural sort of hardworking, debt. When you make debt wealth, then you're manufacturing artificial wealth, right? You're just making wealth out of nothing. And there's consequences for that because it's not true. It's not aligned with the divine principles. It's not aligned with how material life works. You're conjuring up money. And then because of that, there's going to be huge disparities between the people who control the economic system, the people who run the financial system, and the people who are good at the either have a talent or have a good abilities, or not good. They have abilities in running, financial markets or, whatever it is. They're good at business. They're good at music. They're good at sports, whatever it is, right? Or you're just, you're good at your job. Or you live in a country like America that you have an unfair advantage over other places in the world. There's a disparity, right? There's a disparity in who has money, power, who has, a privileged lifestyle, right? People talk about privileges, all these things, right? So the system is rigged in a certain way, and certain demographics benefit from the rigging, and certain demographics are hurt by the rigging of the system, or certain countries, or whatever it might be. There's winners and losers, and it's a pyramidal structure, and there's people at the top that are trillionaires, and there are people at the bottom who live on less than $1 a day. And this is how the global economic structure works. And it's not a cool system. It's not a fair system. But most of us, almost all of us, are 100% dependent on it. And, you can't make it good. You can't make it fair. You can just change who's in power. You can change the demographics that control the money, the demographics that make the decisions, but you can't change the system to be 100% fair for everybody. You can take money from one group and give it to another group, but someone's got to be in power, and the system has to work in a way where there's a top-down, a materialistic pursuits, and it's devoid of divine energy and soul energy as much as it can be. There's God in everything, but the system is demonic because it's not aligned with the divine principles. I've said this over and over again. And we all have problems with one part of the system or another, or the system as a whole, but we don't want to give up our, the privileges and the lifestyle that the system affords all of us, especially the ones that, like us, who benefit. And all of us benefit. Like, I've seen poverty when I went to India, or seen poverty even in America, where, it's a whole different level of lifestyle than I'm accustomed to, right? I drove through, or was in a cab driving through sections of India, and it went on for hours, for miles of, miles, where people are just living in huts. I mean, small huts, 5 by 8 hut. No running water, right? They're cooking with fires. They're pooping and peeing on the street. I mean, they don't have anything. And just hut upon hut, right? They're just little constructed, houses, little shacks and things. You can see these places all around the world. The people are malnourished, right? They have missing teeth. And I mean, they're 5'2", and they weigh like 100 pounds. And you couldn't have an intellectual conversation with them because their brains aren't developed because they didn't get enough protein when they were growing up. I mean, there's a whole level of poverty, and it's so many more people. Like, we're talking about billions of people, right? Half the population lives in this kind of poverty. And we could all give up our lifestyle, give up some of our lifestyle, and bring them up, right? Where people could collectively give up their excesses, their wealth, their land, their food, give up some of what you have to elevate these people. And I haven't found very many people who are really truly interested in doing that, right? And I would include Kanye with that, even though Kanye is, based on what he's saying, he's losing his wealth, he's hemorrhaging his wealth right now. They say he's no longer a billionaire, but he's still a millionaire, right? And so for me, the system is a corrupt system. It's going to collapse, and then we're all going to suffer, and then we're going to have to build something better. That's, how I see it. But in terms of what Kanye's saying here, are black people being marginalized? Are they being, in terms of a genocide, in terms of the food they're eating, in terms of their lifestyle, in terms of the gang culture being promoted in music and, stereotypical type of, violent and uneducated and criminal type of personality being glorified? I think I heard Kanye say, I heard some African Americans say, that there's a celebration when somebody gets out of jail. That, when a black person gets out of jail, they have a big party. But if a black person graduates college, there's nothing, right? Stereotypically, right? This is the kind of thing Kanye's talking about. And so is that true? Is that a systemic, genocidal type of attitude? Are black people being kept down? And so people on the right would say no, for the most part. And people on the left would say yes. Most people would agree with that part. Most of the people on, Mika would agree with what Kanye's saying up to that extent. And then Kanye goes on to say, Ye goes on to say, that the Jewish people are controlling that they're the people who are the music executives. They're the people who are running the system, and they are intentionally keeping black people down. They are in some malevolent way exploiting black people, making money off of their music, and also promoting a self-defeating, criminal type of negative, stereotypical attitudes in the music industry and in the films and these things, so that black people never rise out of their circumstances, and that Jewish people are doing this intentionally. So that's the part that everyone's upset about, right? Because Mika agrees with the first part, that black people are being kept out. But they don't agree with the part that the Jewish executives, that the Jewish people are the executives, that they are the ones who control the music industry, right? They're intentionally guiding the people, the athletes, the entertainers, the black entertainers and athletes, to promote a negative, self-defeating criminal. They're glorifying these types of behaviors, and it's hurting the black community. And so is that part true? Because the first part they believe is true. Most of the people would agree that the first part is true. All of these people who are now saying Kanye should be ostracized, which we'll get into in a moment, they believe that part. The liberal Democrats believe that part. But they don't believe the second part. And I can't say the second part is true, because one, you'd have to understand the motivation, not only of individuals, but a collective, right? And, is this something that one demographic is doing to another demographic? But if there's some truth in it, Kanye often exaggerates and gets emotional and things like this. But is there some truth in it? And I know from what Kanye's saying, but we know from Kyrie Irving, I'll get into Kyrie Irving too at the end of this thing, that there are people in the black community that believe this, not just Kanye. And so if you silence him and say that everything he's saying isn't true at all, there's no truth in it, but many people believe, and there's people in the white community, there's people here in the truth community that 100% agree with what Kanye's saying, right? And so if you silence them and ostracize them, which is what they've done to people in the truth community for just going against the controlled narrative, the narrative that runs our system, right? And so if you do that, what's the consequences? Are you effectively getting rid of that belief? No. You're just strengthening it, right? You're just, in a sense, proving Kanye's point by showing that if you criticize this particular protected group, that you get completely ruined financially and ostracized. And so where is the power there? Where is the control? And who's controlling that? Who's making that happen? And why is it this group is protected in a way that all of us in the truth community can be regularly called crazy, can be called conspiracy theorists, right? Can be called paranoid, can be called terrorists, right? We all can be stereotyped in that way. And there's no, repercussion, right? We can be deplatformed for just disagreeing with the official story. So let's get back to it here.
This past weekend, a group of neo-Nazi demonstrators passed in L.A. showing their support for West's comments. His ex-wife, Kim Kardashian, tweeting, "I stand together with the Jewish community and call on the terrible violence and hateful rhetoric towards them to come to an immediate end." The company has not...
So this is where they're trying to say what Kanye's saying is dangerous because of the past abusive behaviors towards Jewish people. That's what this is what's being said here. That these neo-Nazis are emboldened by Kanye's words and are posting things on an overpass, right? And so is that Kanye's responsibility? Is what he's saying making violent things happen? Because there hasn't been any violence yet. And these are neo-Nazis, right? They're not, that's what they're saying these people are. But are neo-Nazis, into Ye, right? Are neo-Nazis prejudiced against black people? So is this accurate? Is this accurate reporting? Or are these people just controlled opposition, right, who are posting things like this? But in terms of Ye promoting violence, he hasn't. He hasn't said anything in terms of violence. He said, in fact, the opposite in one of those interviews that I saw, that he hasn't promoted any violence. And they're saying he's being violent, which he isn't. That's a mischaracterization, right? He might be wrong about what he's saying. He might be anti-Semitic by what he's saying, right? But he's not promoting violence.
Released specific sales numbers from its Yeezy line, but industry analysts estimate it brings in up to $2 billion a year, around 10% of Adidas's total sales. Amid all the controversy, the company released its latest Yeezy Boost sneaker over the weekend.
In these types of licensing deals, product could be in the pipeline over 18 months in advance.
Kanye's partnerships with legendary fashion house Balenciaga and The Gap both ending in recent weeks. On Monday, the talent agency CAA said it dropped West as a client.
So these are the images from the CAA. This is their building, as above, so below. Their architecture, they have Illuminati eyes structured into the landscaping, into the buildings themselves. This has been something I covered a long time ago. But it is, this is the agency. This is the number one Hollywood agency. And they have their own Illuminati issues here, right? Promoting this thing, whether, they've built their building to structure it in such a way. And then there was this guy, Trevor Moore. Let's go to that here. This guy, Trevor Moore, High Church of the Illuminati. So this is CAA. You can see that the buildings.
Trevor.
He's coming into it, but the building there, that's positioned to be as above, so below, right? It's like a compass and that, Illuminati symbolism. And there's the Illuminati eye there. You can't see it shaded. But he's, this is his.
Trevor,
So another, sign from God that I talk about. Like if you saw my video yesterday, I think it was, that somebody suggested that John Fetterman was like the young, the monster played by Peter Boyle, who played the dad on Everyone Loves Raymond, the monster, Frankenstein monster on Young Frankenstein, right? And there is some similarities. I showed a clip, and then I was watching the show Nathan For You, the season 4, the series finale, and there was a playhouse in Oklahoma and Arkansas. Dallas, a stripper named Dallas from Arkansas. There's a playhouse there, and they were doing a rendition of Young Frankenstein, of all things. That happened on the same day, right? And so I made a video about that. So that must have been 2 days ago. But I covered it in my video on my other channel yesterday. And so today, or last night, I was watching like a basketball game, and like I want to have it. I don't want to catch up to real time. Like I want to tape it, right? So I can skip the commercials. And sometimes I flip through the movie channels and watch different movies. And there's a movie called Red Rocket that I never looked at because it looked kind of cheesy. It was about this guy who was a real lowlife. He was coming back to his redneck girlfriend, beaten up. He was all beaten up, and he's homeless, and is his wife actually. And the mom had like no teeth, and they look like meth heads, and they're in this shabby little white trash type of a house, right? And the guy ended up being a porn star in the movie, right? It's a comedy. It's this actor here with Trevor Moore, right? And so I never really noticed the guy in this. This is the only time I've ever seen the guy. I've seen this Trevor Moore video a couple of times. But he also talked about he pretended to be an agent. So I watched a little bit of that movie last night. And then I see the actor here today. He's just bizarre, right? Some random actor. Don't know who it is. Maybe it's a comedian or something. But here he is, right? This is the only 2 times I saw him was last night and then today making the video. Okay, let's get back to the regular video here.
really like the last album.
Wow. Hi, we're the Illuminati.
Hi.
So then they go into the Illuminati stuff, right? If you've ever seen this. So this is CAA. He's coming into CAA, and, of course, he died. Remember, he supposedly jumped off or fell off a balcony or something.
And a production company is shelving a new documentary about him. But the musician and designer refusing to back down, even taunting Adidas in a recent podcast.
I could say anti-Semitic things and Adidas can't drop me. Now what? Now what?
Yeah, now what? NBC's Stephanie Gosk with that report. Joining us now, founding partner at the media venture, Puck, Matthew Bellany. He's an entertainment lawyer and former editor for The Hollywood Reporter. Also with us,
Hollywood Reporter guy's there. He's there.
Democratic State Senator Scott Wiener of California and host
Scott Wiener's there. They got Wiener.
of MSNBC's Politics Nation and president of the National Action Network, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Sharpton, they got Sharpton.
So, Matthew, let's start with you.
Look at this panel. Look at they got a whole. Everyone's out there.
The fallout began earlier this week. Ari Emanuel wrote an op-ed telling people they needed to distance themselves from Kanye West. Others followed some a bit more slowly. Certainly, Adidas took their time. But right now,
There they are. They got it done.
it appears that Kanye is getting it from all sides. This appears to be
He's getting it from all sides.
just almost a unified front against him.
Absolutely. It's going to be very difficult for him to tour. Live Nation has said they are not going to work with him. His agents at CAA said they will not, work with him on any tour upcoming. His music is still available on the major platforms. I mean, that's a whole separate issue. It's a very slippery slope when you go down that road. But most of the financial partners now have abandoned him.
They've abandoned Kanye.
We saw part of the problem with Kanye West's comments is amplifying them, which is that it gives license to others to sort of come out from the shadows, like the people who are hanging the signs in your state.
Exactly. They're coming out of the shadows and being on the overpasses. They go straight from the shadows to the overpasses.
What do you make of Adidas's move here, and how dangerous do you believe it is to have someone as prominent as Kanye West saying these things?
So danger is a talking point, right? Now, Adidas said danger. This guy's going to say danger. This other dude just said danger. This guy, Willie Geist, just said danger. So this is a talking point, right? But is there danger? I don't see danger in what Kanye's saying. Kanye himself isn't dangerous. And they're saying that somehow Kanye's words are going to provoke violence against Jewish people, right? That's what the concern is. And so therefore he should be ostracized and be thrown out of society. His financial, his ability to earn money, all these things are cut off. And so that's the position here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm glad that Adidas did this. I know it was a big step. They're going to take a big hit to their bottom line.
Scott Wiener.
But Adidas did
they always have to have a Wiener in the Senate.
Right thing. And what Kanye did, it's important to acknowledge how harmful and deeply dangerous it is. Yes.
Why deeply dangerous? How does this become deeply dangerous, right? How does this actually become something that's deeply dangerous? His words.
Anti-Semitic, but it's not just anti-Semitic. He literally said he was going to start killing Jews. And
he literally didn't say that. Right? He literally did not say he was going to start killing Jews. He did not say those words. What he's referring to, because I'm in the editing process and I already know what's coming up, right? So I researched it. I'm like, did Kanye actually say that? And they're saying when he said DEFCON 3, he's going to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people the next day. Remember, I'll show you the quote. But that's what started this whole thing. That he was saying he was going to kill Jews. So this guy saying that is not factually accurate. And so this idea of him being dangerous or violent and being violent against Jewish people isn't accurate based on anything he said. In fact, he said the opposite. He said that he wasn't promoting violence. He was just using words. We'll get into that in a moment. But when this guy said this senator, this is irresponsible for him to say that.
Anti-Semitic, but it's not just anti-Semitic. He literally said he was going to start killing Jews. And these people, hurl this banner over the freeway in LA, saying that, quote, I agree with Kanye on the Jews. And historically, we know that rhetoric, hateful rhetoric against the Jews, conspiracy theories about Jews. He said that Jews control the media, control Hollywood, very anti-Semitic tropes. Historically, for centuries and centuries, those kinds of conspiracy theories about Jews, that we control the world, that we're ruining things for people, are followed by people killing us. And so Kanye needs to be ostracized. It's completely despicable and hateful what he's doing.
So he needs to be ostracized. I'm going to search him say. I don't think he said killing Jews. I think he said DEFCON 3, which for Kanye means talking. Like, I'd have never heard him be violent in this way. But if he said something like that, that is what it is. So that's from before. What I just said there was from before. I'm in the editing process. And I searched it, and I'll get to that in a moment. But he didn't say that. He's referring to, this senator, this congressman's referring to the DEFCON 3 thing. But when I saw the title to this video, Kanye needs to be completely ostracized, says California lawmaker, this guy Scott Wiener. And so when I saw that headline, I was like, what about him being mentally ill? Because that's how they've portrayed him every time he goes off. Every time Kanye has every time Ye has goes full Kanye, going back to the Taylor Swift thing or whatever it is, they talk about how he's mentally ill. He's talked about being bipolar and how that's his superpower. They talked about him going on his meds, right? Pete Davidson said he should go on his meds. And then who is the other guy? It's Chris Cuomo. I'm editing. I didn't know it then, but came back to me. It's Chris Cuomo. Both Chris Cuomo and Pete Davidson said they were on meds. You should go on yours. Pete Davidson says apparently has the borderline personality disorder, amongst other things. And Chris Cuomo said he is depressed. And they both told Kanye, take your meds. I mean, that's how they're portraying him. And if conspiracy theorists are mentally ill, your position is to ostracize them. Your position is to throw them out of society when people are crazy, when you're calling them crazy, right? And that's how he's been characterized. And now you're saying, when he goes into his mental illness, which he's done before, that he should be completely ostracized, cut off from business, deplatformed, all of these things. That's your position, is to ostracize him. He just said that all these things about these conspiracy theories around this certain demographic, about them controlling the world. And then when Kanye criticizes this demographic, he is ostracized and is stripped of his money, his ability to make money, his ability, but they keep on putting his comments out there, right?
I'm glad that Adidas did this. I know it's a big step. They're going to take a big hit to their bottom line, but Adidas did the right thing. And what Kanye did, it's important to acknowledge how harmful and deeply dangerous it is. Yes, it's anti-Semitic, but it's not just anti-Semitic. He literally said he was going to start killing Jews. And now these people, hurl this ban.
Okay, so I'm going to search that. So here's the TMZ. Kanye West, I only wish death on Jews who did me wrong, right? And this is what they say, though. Kanye West may have dug even a deeper hole over his anti-Semitic comments, saying when he said he wanted to go DEFCON 3 on Jews, he meant only the ones who screwed him over. Now, anybody who knows Kanye knows that when he said DEFCON 3, what he did was stupid, right? When he said, I'm a bit sleepy tonight. When I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. The funny thing is I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jews. You guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who ever opposes your agenda. He wasn't meaning violence. Like, that should be clear. If anybody knows anything about Kanye, DEFCON 3 meant he was going to say mean things or say things that he believed to be true about a demographic, which is stupid. I don't agree with that. I'm not saying that was smart. Saying this before he goes to sleep, this is Kanye. This is what makes Kanye Kanye, right? Like he left this thing out there. He's great at getting attention. He's great at being provocative. He's done this over the years, where he draws attention to himself and his whatever he's doing through doing things that are outrageous. The same thing Madonna did in a different way, right? And Kanye saying this before he went to bed, it wasn't smart because of, whatever. It wasn't going to be helpful. It wasn't going to make the world a better place. It was just going to, this was what's happened since then was going to happen. But DEFCON 3 never meant that he was going to hurt Jewish people physically. So this is TMZ, right? And they have Piers Morgan's thing here, right? Kanye West says he only wishes death on Jews who did him wrong. And that's not what he said, right? Kanye West may have dug himself in a deeper hole over his anti-Semitic comments, saying when he said he wanted to go DEFCON 3 on Jews, he only meant the ones who screwed him over. And that's not what happened here, right? You can hear this is what the video they posted here.
DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. Are you sorry you said that?
No.
I think it matters. You should be.
Absolutely not.
You should be.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, but you should be.
Absolutely not.
When you insult the Jewish people and say you're going DEFCON 3 on the Jewish people, that is as racist as anything you say you've been through and any pain that you've experienced. It's the same thing. Racism is racism. And you know that, I think, don't you?
So I'm not defending what Kanye said, right? I'm not, or his actions and how it's going to hurt free speech throughout the internet, the truth community, whatever it is, right? I said the same thing about Alex Jones and all the QBs and the right-wing people that say stupid stuff, say provocative stuff, and, they want you to be crazy, which I'll get into in a moment. They want truthers to be crazy because that's the profile they've created. I don't know if Kanye's in on it or not, right? And so the way that he worded this, the way he went about it, he's very provocative. He likes to draw attention, right? Yay. And so, that is whatever it is. But them characterizing it as him saying he's going to kill people is obviously not true, right?
And any pain that you've experienced. It's the same thing. Racism is racism. And you know that, I think, don't you?
Yeah, obviously. That's why I said it.
So you said it knowing it's racist?
Yes. I fought fire with fire.
Okay.
I'm not here to get hosed down.
At least that's
It's a
honest.
different type of freedom fighter. I will say I'm sorry for the people that I hurt with the DEFCON, the confusion that I call. I feel like I cause hurt and confusion. And I'm sorry for the families of the people that had nothing to do with the trauma that I had been through, and that I use my platform where you say hurt people, and I was hurt.
So clearly this headline is a lie, right? I mean, this is slander. Kanye West says he only wishes death on Jews who did him wrong. And what that what that politician said, the congressman, that he said he wants to kill Jews, both of those things are wrong. Like, they're interpreting what he said, they're misinterpreting it, and they're doing it on purpose. They're doing it in a way that they know he didn't mean that, right? It's clear based on his history, Ye's history, and the way that he's explained this. It's always hard to determine intention, but, he didn't say those things. That senator said, that congressman said, he literally said he was going to kill Jewish people.
Not just anti-Semitic. He literally said he was going to start killing Jews.
He literally didn't say that. And I'm going to get into the, what DEFCON 3 actually means here. But clearly, that is a bad thing, that's irresponsible what that congressman's doing, just as bad as Ye, because Ye's the one who's getting punished, right? that congressman's not getting punished for lying about what Ye said, or TMZ lying about what he said, willfully misinterpreting it. There was a few more things that I found that were interesting I want to add to this here.
I love Jewish people. I work with Jewish people. Yo, watch this, watch this. Some of my best friends are Jewish.
Right. So you know how that sounds.
How many times have you heard that statement?
Of course. Of course.
Wait. Have we ever heard that term before? But the funny thing is, they are. I work with Dove Charney that got kicked out of his company, out of American Apparel. I work with this guy every day. He's like my twin. He's one of my favorite people.
So let's go to the part where I talk about DEFCON 3 here. But to characterize this as being of threatening violence is not accurate. And it's, disingenuous to push that on somebody that you've claimed for years is mentally ill, somebody that the media has claimed for years is mentally ill. And now you're going to, ostracize him. Come on, right? Like that's not being accurate. You can condemn him for what he said. You can condemn him for going after a demographic. And there are rules in place. There's rules in place on various social media platforms where they'll deplatform you for saying things like this. There's all these rules. But to characterize it as violence is not accurate, right? Is not accurate. Like they're saying because of their past history that Kanye, they have to consider this to be an act of violence, right? That's what the senator is saying. Because that demographic, Jewish people in the past, when they're characterized this way, people have acted violently. But is that what Kanye's doing now? That's not accurate, right? It's not accurate to portray him as violent when he's never been violent in the past. When has he ever been arrested for violence, right? He's used words. He's said things that are hurtful to people. He's said things that are, sounding crazy. He's done that before a lot, right? But he's never been violent. Okay, so DEFCON 3, and again, we're not saying that Kanye was thinking about what he said, because he often doesn't. Uses words in ways that are reflective of what other people understand it. According to a veteran, DEFCON 3 means force readiness increase above normal levels, and would mean there's an increased regional tensions with possible U.S. force involvement. Under this warning, the U.S. military will have 15 minutes of warning prior to launching operations. So for Kanye, what's launching operations? For Kanye, it's tweeting. For Kanye, for Ye, it's Instagul, right? He is, he's going to say things. That means he is going to say provocative things. Because his, Kanye's weapons, Ye's weapons, in this case, would be his words, right? Would be him going off, like this is what he does. And so is it, does he have some sort of, a history of violence, a history of using other weapons, right? So here is the phases of DEFCON. Lowest state of readiness, increased intelligence watch and strengthened security, increase in force readiness above that required for normal readiness. Next step is nuclear war, DEFCON 2. Nuclear war is imminent or has already begun. So those are the steps of DEFCON. And for Kanye, DEFCON 1 would be saying provocative things, right? In fact, that's all of his DEFCONs. Okay, so there's another piece to this. Let me have this guy talk again here.
Over the freeway in LA, saying that, quote, I agree with Kanye on the Jews. And historically, we know that rhetoric, hateful rhetoric against the Jews, conspiracy theories about Jews. He said that Jews control the media, control Hollywood, very anti-Semitic tropes. Historically, for centuries and centuries, those kinds of conspiracy theories about Jews, that we control the world, that we're ruining things for people, are...
So this is an existing theory within the truth community. I really haven't looked into it too much. I mean, I have my own opinions about it. But what you could prove factually is like what's the ethnicity or religion of all the music moguls, for example? Is it 60% Jewish? Is it 10% Jewish, right? In terms of the, in charge of the Federal Reserve, the banks, who are the presidents of the big banks, right? These are things that you could see. You could figure out who is running, either owning or the CEO of the various media establishments, right? The various media industries. Who's running it? Who are the people? Who are the bosses? And if there's a disproportionate amount of people who are Jewish in those power positions in the banks, and I'm not saying there is, you can go look for it yourself. Everyone's going to come up with their own opinion on this. Then there might be something of merit that Kanye's saying, right? Maybe Kanye's at least partially right. Maybe it's not necessarily a conspiracy, but you have people of a certain demographic. Certainly we know that the British royal family and people of Anglo descent have controlled a lot of the world's money, a lot of the world's power. America controls so much of the world's military power, for example, and economic power. And so there is that, right? There's various people, Saudi Arabians, Arabs, that control so much of the oil and the oil power, right? You have people who are in charge of power, people of a demographic that gain power. And then they have specific things in their demographic goals, things that they want to see happen, and they want to see their demographic taken care of, right? That's how it works. I mean, that's why people get money and power, so that they can enforce their belief system on other people.
Followed by people killing us. And so Kanye needs to be ostracized. It's completely despicable and hateful what he's doing.
So, Rev, obviously Adidas took some extra time making this step because it is a massive business decision for them to.
So for him to say it's despicable and he should be ostracized and then mischaracterize what Kanye said. Because, again, I don't think anybody who knows Kanye or knows Ye or has listened to what he said before, like he was going DEFCON 3 on his wife. He was going DEFCON 3 on Pete Davidson. He was going DEFCON 3 on Adidas and on the Gap. That was all what he would characterize that. And then he decided to turn his attention, the things he was saying, the accusations he was making, and turn them on the Jewish people. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not agreeing with him. And certainly the way he handled it was not great. I mean, he did it in a way that just is going to make things worse. Certainly not going to make things better. But they're mischaracterizing him, and they're doing it intentionally. The other piece to this is a Hollywood movie I saw called Cadillac Records. And there's a guy called Leonard Chess, and he was in charge of many of the famous, I guess this is in the 40s or 50s, African-American artists. Chuck Berry's one of them, and various other people, right? People you would recognize their names. Etta James, I think, is who Beyonce played. Wasn't a great movie, but the movie is about what Kanye's talking about here. I mean, it's a Hollywood movie that was made, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, 2008. And so whatever that is, it's 14 years ago. And I should say here, I'm editing, that it spans from the 1940s to the 1960s, and it's based in a true story. So this is, actual people based on actual events. And so in this movie, this character, Adrian Brody, is this guy, Leonard Chess, and he starts recruiting African-American singers. And he signs them to his record label. But he doesn't pay them the proper royalties. Instead, he buys them Cadillacs and hands them cash whenever they need money. But they're not getting reimbursed for what they're doing, right? They're not, and he gets sued eventually here. It says here, Chess was sued for underpayment of royalties by the great Howlin' Wolf Chester Burnett in 1974, and again 1976 by blues artist Willie Dixon and Muddy Waters. Again, he was sued. Wolf's claim for $2.5 million was settled after his death. Dixon and Waters used their own award to start their own label. The music moguls who bled millions from a black legend, and this is the various, this is where that quote comes from. And so this guy, Chess, was sued eventually because he wasn't doing right by these artists, right? And we know Tom Petty sued the music industry. There's many artists who get horrible contracts. I mean, what happens is they sign contracts where they, and they have these very lavish sort of tours that they go on and things like this, where they, they buy a lot of fancy cars. They get signing bonuses, and they usually are in debt to the record label. And so when they have to produce second and third albums, just to pay off the debt from the bonuses and the money that was laid out to them in the beginning. This isn't just for African American artists, but this is a common practice, right? So Kanye's saying in the interview with Piers Morgan that he wants to show these contracts that he says are exploitive, these contracts that are used to control African American artists. And he's saying that Jewish people are doing this, right? And so, again, Kanye often says things, goes too far, says things over the top. He has a habit of doing this, right? He has a habit of getting emotional and just pushing the envelope and missing out on maybe an essential point, right? Like he could have legitimate disputes with all these various people, and they might all be Jewish, right? Like they might have all screwed him over. But he also exaggerates things. He also, he does those things. He's done it in the past. And so what's lost in all this is he might have some valid points. And to say Kanye needs to be completely ostracized and be a sitting lawmaker and not validate some of what he says, right? Because that same guy, he's a California, this guy, Wiener, right? This Wiener congressman. If you were talking about black people being oppressed and being marginalized, he would totally agree with that. He would totally agree with the first part of what Kanye was saying. What he doesn't agree with is that Jewish people are doing it intentionally to Kanye and other African American artists. But there are athletes and artists that agree with Kanye, and we'll get to Kyrie Irving in a moment here. But there are people who agree that won't speak up. And so by saying he should be ostracized, it's flexing your muscle. It's putting out your power. What's your consequence? What's Senator Wiener's or Congressman Wiener's consequence for saying Kanye said he wanted to kill Jewish people when he didn't want to say it? When he literally said he wanted to kill Jewish people, and what he said was DEFCON 3. And, that's just a flagrant misinterpretation, like I said, right? Let's go to the Kyrie Irving thing next, and then we'll come back to the Elon Musk thing. Also, they have this picture of him looking crazy when a politician says this.
Literally said he was going to start killing Jews.
He didn't say that literally. That's a lie. That's not true. He literally did not say those words, right? He said DEFCON 3. Nets condemn Kyrie Irving's actions after he promotes anti-Semitic movie. Thursday, Nets guard Kyrie Irving tweeted out a link to the movie Hebrews to Negroes, Wake Up Black America, a film based on a controversial book of the same name that is viewed as anti-Semitic. If you want the details, Rolling Stone magazine broke it. And again, this word anti-Semitic, when they misinterpret these guys in the media, this congressman, this Jewish congressman, misinterpret what Kanye's saying and then calling it, that he wants to kill people, the same thing can be said for anything that's anti-Semitic, right? Like you can misinterpret anything and then call it anti-Semitic, right? You can, anytime there's criticism, it could be valid criticism, whether it's a group of people or just an individual person, you can always claim victim consciousness. I mean, the same thing is happening with every demographic. It's something that, Jewish people are known for. And so I don't know if this movie's anti-Semitic or not. I watched the trailer and it's horrible. The trailer is like unwatchable. And so I'm not interested in the movie, and I'm not, I don't know whether there's truth in it or if it's, would be considered hate speech. I don't know. Right. But it's on IMDb. That's where I saw the trailer. And so I assume it's not been, it might be criticized, but is there truth in it, right? It's sort of a truther movie. But Kyrie Irving just tweeted a link to the movie. And because of that, his owner of his the organization, who hasn't apologized for him, who ends up looking like Kyrie is looking better and better after everything that's happened post, COVID and these things. The way he was treated, the way he was maligned. And again, it's okay to do it to certain people, right? So it's okay to do it to Kanye. It's okay to do it to Kyrie. It's okay to do it to, say someone like Tucker Carlson or anybody in the truth community. It's okay to disparage them because they don't agree with the official story, which is an abuse of power, right? The power is with the official story. But what they're doing here is promoting this, because I wouldn't have known about this had I not seen this article. Not too many people, Kyrie has whatever followers that reads his Twitter, but they've decided to make this into an issue, and they're going to be talking about it in the sports world, the pundits, for a very long time, right? I mean, this is another case of, again, like all he did is, let's see where he tweeted it here. It's on Amazon. It's on Amazon.com, right? It should be up to Amazon to remove it. And so Kyrie tweeted this. He didn't say anything about it. He just showed you where you could get it on Amazon, right? You understand what I'm saying here? It's on freaking Amazon. You can rent it for $12. You can buy it for $50, right? And so, if it's on Amazon, it's got 4.5, almost 5 stars, like 4.5 stars as a rating. And so, if you can buy it on Amazon, how is it anti-Semitic? How is this something that's filled with hate speech? Because that's on Amazon to get rid of it, right? And so is this based in interpretation? And so why is Kyrie Irving taking the heat for this? It should be on Amazon. It's on IMDb. It's certainly not considered a hate movie. And so what's up, right? Like, this is where I'm saying, anybody can say they're being offended. You can always say, and we live in a time where everybody says they're offended all the time. Now, I'm not going to watch this movie. I don't care, right? This is all just a part of these various narratives of, when you're lied to, when your official story is BS, then you come up with alternative versions of your history, of your understanding of reality, of the fabric of reality. When you're lied to by the powers that be, systemically, which we all are, and, when we say, hey, we're being lied to by the powers that be, we are, called names or whatever it is, right? But it's on Amazon. This isn't on Kyrie. It's on Amazon. If Kyrie posted a link to something that's on Amazon, how is he, being held, responsible for something? And clearly they're linking this to what Ye's doing. And again, maybe this is his way of showing support for Kanye or for Ye. But as far as we know, like we don't know how he feels about the movie. He didn't recommend it. He just tweeted it. And he's being condemned by the owner of his organization. And they, mistreated Kyrie last year because of his position that is looking better and better as we, now see everything that's going on, right? I talk about this quite often on my other channel. And so then there's the Elon Musk thing. Kanye West appears to be unsuspended on Twitter after Elon Musk's takeover, as well as Donald J. Trump. So this is also from MSNBC.
You would think the GOP House Judiciary might have reconsidered this tweet, but nope, it's still up there. Kanye, Elon, Trump. And our panel is here too. All right, Elon Musk is officially the chief twit. What's going to happen here, David?
I don't think that anybody knows.
The title of this video is Why Kanye's Past Remarks Face No Consequences and Problems at Twitter. Kanye's no longer a billionaire. That's what they're saying. He lost his deal at Adidas. I mean, come on. Like, he's being ostracized. These two clowns misinterpreted his what he said, and went from saying DEFCON 3, which he meant as, saying words about a demographic, to that he was trying to kill that demographic, right? And, you know, the senator, the guy's a senator, actually. I've been calling him a congressman, but he's an actual senator. One of what, 200 senators or 100 senators? And so 104. And so, you know, a very powerful person is saying Kanye should be ostracized, and then saying he literally said he wanted to kill Jewish people. He didn't say that, right? What is their punishment? What's their consequence, right? What's their consequence for misinterpreting and demonizing him and, you know, making it worse? They certainly didn't make things better by doing that.
I don't think that anybody knows, but it feels ominous. And
Feels ominous. What's so ominous? That people that don't agree with the official story, don't agree with your worldview, are going to be able to post things when oftentimes, you know, how many times have the people in the truth community been right? I can say, you know, I've been through this so much where I've been, you know, one of the people that's been right, and we're demonized and ostracized, and, you know, people are, whatever, ignored, laughed at, called crazy. And then when we're right, they kind of admit we're right, but don't admit it. And they never say, hey, these guys were right before. Maybe they'll be right again next time. You know, that's how you judge things. If somebody's hitting, you know, 800, right, batting average, which is, you know, it's quite impressive. In baseball, 300, you know, 3 out of 10 hits is big. 4 out of 10 hits doesn't happen. It's happened like 2 or 3 times. There's only been a couple of people that batted 400, and that was like back in the 40s, right? And being in the truth community, I can say on these issues, I'm probably batting in the 90 percentiles, right? And you think I would get more love, you know, like more, hey, this guy's been right before, maybe he'll be right now. I mean, you know, not that I, you know, care about that, but they don't do it. They never give it up, right? They never acknowledge that they've been wrong, these so-called experts, time and time again. They're always on the wrong side of things. And then they, you know, they'll do it again, right? We're supposed to trust these guys who are always on the wrong side of history and always predicting things the wrong way. I mean, they're not experts when they're, you know, they're batting 10 or 15%.
I'm somebody who's covered this back in April when all of this started to happen. I had my hotel room booked in Delaware. I was getting ready for the trial that never happened. And I'm left with...
You mean the trial of one Hunter J. Biden? What about Hunter J. Biden? Right? Like, compare him to Kanye or Ye, or compare him to Trump, or compare him to any of these people. He's a crackhead and a horrible person and should be in jail, right?
With no understanding of what he wants to do with the site. So he's talked about being a free speech absolutist. We've seen that start to erode over these last couple of days. We've seen really bad signs today of who's been let back on and what the discourse is like. I wonder what he wants to do exactly.
Who's been let back on? Because Kanye needs to be banished from society because he said things that we're now misinterpreting as something that he didn't say, right?
How fully he's embracing this role as chief twit, as you say, or the person who owns this $44 billion product, so because it is one. And also just what it means for discourse in this country, going back to what we were talking about before. And I've been thinking a lot about something you wrote about in your last book, Anon, which is the role of these very wealthy individuals in our society who, by virtue of that, being successful, having a lot of money, feel imbued to make decisions, feel right in making those decisions about how our society should act and how we should communicate and deal with.
See, there's a collective ruling class, and there's a very rigid bandwidth of what you're allowed to talk about, right? And Donald Trump, he's a part of it. Elon Musk, obviously, is a part of it. Kanye, Ye, maybe even to some extent Kyrie Irving, who knows? They're all a part of that. They're all a part of that wealthy group. And I don't know if they're scripted or they're actors or a part of this, what I call the show. I mean, they're definitely part of this show, right? But when you go outside of this tightly wound bandwidth of what you're allowed to talk about, tightly controlled, especially now when society's collapsing, when, you know, it isn't going to be long before everything is quite different than it is now in terms of your lifestyle. I was going to do a big thing on diesel today. I mean, there's a bunch of things that I'm not even going to get to because this is a long video on just this. But, you know, all these things are, well, let me switch over to my voiceover thing here. So they have a very narrow bandwidth, right, of what you're allowed to talk about and, who's allowed to talk about it. And when you deviate from that, whether you're a person who's in the club and all of a sudden you do something they don't like, and who knows if Trump falls into that category or not. I think he's still in the club or whatever. I don't know. Who knows? Elon Musk, again, if he allows free speech on Twitter, the kind of free speech that they're trying to suppress, then he's going to be Kanye. He's going to be, he's going to be trumped, right? And so all of these, again, are they actors? Are they a part of it? Are they following a script? All these things, I don't know. Like, I don't care, right? And they're certainly sending a message here. But what we do know is it's completely one-sided, with the people with the power enforcing things, shutting things down, and stopping people from expressing themselves. Oftentimes, the people who are expressing themselves do it in such a way that it's easy for them to be called crazy. It's easy for them to be ostracized. Certainly, Kanye falls into this category, right? I mean, he's somebody who, again, he has all this stream of consciousness, and he gets very emotional, and he doesn't think about how his words are going to be. Maybe he does, and he's just, he's using it to draw attention. Who knows, like, what his reasons for doing these things are. But we do know that the economy is going to collapse, and people are going to want to blame somebody, right? And maybe it'll be Biden. They'll have a hard time blaming Trump at this point. So to some extent, they're trying to blame Putin. But there's, other people who are going to be blaming maybe various demographics. There are going to be people who, already are prejudiced and hateful towards Jewish people. They're going to blame them, right? And these things are all going to, all these things are going to happen, right? Whatever way this shakes out, there are going to be some people who are going to blame Jewish people. That's going to happen. That's why they're, talking about this, because there's going to be a lot of unhappy people, and there's going to have to be people who take the blame for the failure of our system, for the promises that you think you're entitled to about your lifestyle being broken. And to a lot of extent, it's about this, right? For me, I know that there's a spiritual reason far beyond people's decisions, right? The system has to collapse. It's bad for us, like I said in the beginning of the video. It's taking us away from our divinity, away from our soul's purpose. And so it has to collapse. That's why I don't care about it. I don't get into the blame game or whatever, because I don't know, who's just fulfilling the need of the time, right? There's people who are bringing the system down because it's God's will. Are they doing it because of that? No. Are they in contact with God? No. But they're still doing the work that needs to be done. And it's the work we don't want to have done. We don't want the system to collapse. And so in that, to me, it's just the blame game isn't going to make your lifestyle come back. The blame game isn't going to, stop the system from changing in a way that's, materially worse than it was before. Anyways, this video is way too long. I'm starting to fade here. I didn't get much sleep last night. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pouring from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.